Jesus Christ. Slava Jesus Good evening to everyone.
Good evening, Father.
Let's see, that doesn't belong here. So, how many of you have ever seen the TV show The Family Feud? And that was one of the trivia questions we had a couple weeks ago at Trivia Night. And the trivia question was, how many hosts of Family Feud can you name? So that's not my question today for you. My question today for you is, have you ever had a Family Feud? Some are shaking no, some are laughing, oh boy, you don't want to know. So, have you ever heard of the most famous feud of all, one that raged on for, decades and decades? Somebody said it. The Hatfield and the McCoys. Yes, that's exactly right. Separated by a little stream between Kentucky and West Virginia lived the Hatfields and McCoys, and it went on for decades. There were arrests, there were imprisonments, there were shots, there were murders, there was a Supreme Court intervention, and the thing about it is nobody really knows how the thing started. Some say it started with the Civil War, where one was on the Confederate side, one was on the Union side, and that began the feud. Some said it was they were both on the same side, but one deserted, and that started the feud. Some said they were both on the same side. They went to the war, came home from the war. Somebody stole the other guy's hog, and that's how it started. But nobody ever remembers really how the feud began. They just know that it occurred. And maybe sometimes our own feuds are sort of like that. We don't know the origins or the sources of it. We just know that they happen. But I mention that today because we have a family feud inside the church. Oh, no, don't get nervous. I don't mean St. Thomas Church, because everything goes swimmingly at St. Thomas, right? Oh, that's the spirit. But inside the church, globally, there was a feud called a heresy. Going back, many years, there were those who liked the icons and wanted to keep them, and there were those who wanted to destroy the icons and get rid of them. Remember that? It was called the iconoclastic heresy. But the thing is, imagine this. People back in the day weren't fighting about property. They weren't fighting about politics. They weren't fighting about wars. They weren't fighting about whose hog is whose. They were fighting about religion. They were arguing about religion. I guess, in a sense, as scandalous as a 120-year-old, 120-year-long heresy is, I guess there's something almost redemptive about the fact that they were actually thinking and talking and arguing about our Lord. So this heresy raged on starting from the Sixth Ecumenical Council, where they thought the whole thing was put to bed and resolved, and then it wasn't. And then it reared up again, and it went on for about 120 years total into the Seventh Ecumenical Council. And why do we talk about that today? Because that's the day we're celebrating today. If you listen to Doreen and George and Paula back there and Marianne back there singing, they were singing the Tropar of the Fathers of the Seventh Ecumenical Council, the one that finally put an end to the iconoclastic heresy, where they said icons weren't allowed to be in church. And kind of one of the reasons why this thing went on so long and so long and so long and wouldn't end is there was the culture of the day. You know, the Byzantine Church, back, before we as Eastern Europeans embraced the Byzantine tradition, back in Constantinople, even before, we embraced Christianity, they were surrounded by Jewish influence and Muslim influence. And they were really kind of puritanical and minimalistic in their approach of church decor. And so having icons, this was really kind of foreign to the thinking of the day, back 13, 14, 1500 years ago. You didn't have all this ornate decor in the church. They were rather kind of minimalist. And so that was one of the reasons why the iconoclastic heresy really was something that had a lot of fuel and movement and wouldn't go away very easily. So it raged for about 120 years, largely due to the influence of Islam and Jewish influences, and an idea that the church was supposed to be removed from all things that were symbolic, because that could border on idolatry. But it was a man by the name of St. John Damascene. You ever hear of him? I hope you're shaking your heads yes, because you ever been to a funeral in the Byzantine church?
Yes.
Have you ever kissed the cross?
Yes.
Who do you think wrote the songs that we sing when we come to kiss the cross? St. John Damascene. I sort of gave you the answer, so I'm glad one person remembered. Okay, so St. John Damascene, who was very influential, and he talked really about, and he explained about how iconography and showing Christ in icons is not anything heretical. In fact, it certainly does belong, and his way of thinking was really kind of simple. I don't want to oversimplify it, but here it is in a nutshell. He said, if Jesus was born into a body, Jesus is God, Jesus is co-eternal, Jesus always was. There was never a time when Jesus wasn't, right? Okay? So if Jesus came into this world to the Blessed Virgin Mary and was encased in flesh, then he made the flesh holy. Kind of simple. And if Jesus was encased in flesh and born into this world for the Blessed Virgin Mary and walked in this world, he made the world holy. That's why the Byzantine Church and the Catholic Christian Church respects the body, regards the body, believes that the body is going to be raised up at the second coming, after the second coming of our Lord, when our Lord recreates the world anew. He raises the body, gives us a glorified body, recreates the world anew, gives us a glorified world, because it's sacred. It's not going to go away forever. And that's our understanding. So, friends, how does this all relate to us today, 1,400 years later? I mean, that's kind of a nice reflection so far. It's good to know these things. Good to know why we're singing the songs we sing. Good to know why we see the icons we see and why our churches look the way they look. But what does it mean for us today? The minute we walk out of this church, we say, gosh, that was nice. I'll look forward to hearing that same thing next year. Think about this. Jesus is encased in flesh, and we are all, by virtue of our birth and our baptism, in his image and likeness. God is within us too, and God is within one another. So if God is within us, do we respect ourselves? Do we see that image of God in us? Do we regard our body as the temple it really is? The temple is a holding place of God, a dwelling place of God. Do we abuse our body? Do we abuse the bodies of others? Do we love ourselves? Do we see the face of Christ in ourselves? Do we see the image of God in others? That's sometimes a challenge, isn't it? Could be a person you live with, work with. Think about this. About a person that you see on the TV. You don't even think it's a real person. You just know their opinions. You know what they believe, you know what they say, you know what they teach, you know what they espouse. It's easy to shake a fist and shout. Same thing with a person in the car, running along the highway. They're the image of God as well. So that's our task and our question before us today, friends. We see the image of God in us and in one another. Glory to Jesus Christ.
Glory to God.